Oh, I lost it. I grabbed it back to start with. Welcome. Yeah. New time. Welcome to the Rotary Club of Fayetteville. Proudly celebrating 105 years. We are within just a week or two of our anniversary for 105 years. My name is David Sager. I'm president for this Rotary year. And let's begin our meeting with a four-way test of what we think, say, or do. Is it the truth? Is it correct? Bringing our music today. Music is Larry. The
battery just died on this thing.
Oh, yeah, I'll get the other.
Oh,
We can hear you.
I think so. Well, you can hear it. How do well, I'm deciding whether they should sit or not. We're doing this in honor of Simon and Garfunkel, who are surrogates are in town tonight. I'm going to the program at the Walton Arts Center. I'm sure some of you are as well. Should we stand for Simon and Garfunkel? Let's sit. She says sit, so sit. I think I'm gonna have to wait for David here. I will. One of the songs that they wrote came out in 1970. Is America, and it's really about pursuing the American dream. Paul Simon was in London with his girlfriend Kathy's song, and he was really having a hard time just in life in general. And they decided to go to America to basically chase the American dream. And thus this song that he wrote. No. It will have to come, unless you know the words. Everybody know the words? Okay. I'm just going to yell.
I'll keep up with you.
All right. Yeah. So I bought cigarettes, Mr. Wagner, and we bought for a man. And said, from me, it's like it's it's from second. Gotta skip it on down here. Cigarettes, big kind on a raincoat. So I look see me. You better make a fee.
Hey, everybody knew. All the party to everybody.
Say the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Silence. Have a seat.
Now, you do know the words to this. Can you hear the guitar but turned up? Hey. You hear me? Nope. You turning it on?
Hang on just a second.
Okay. You've heard this song many, many times. The first line is, "Hello, darkness, my old friend." Well, who the heck is darkness? You don't know.
Satan.
It's Sandy Greenberg. It's Art Garfunkel's roommate at Columbia. Happy together. They were really enjoying each other. And Sandy went blind in the first semester. He went home to Buffalo just to be in isolation and be in misery. Art says, "You are my project." He went up to Buffalo, convinced him to come back and study again at Columbia. Make a long story short, everything he did at Columbia was worked around this guy, Sandy Greenberg, so that he could graduate. And graduate he did. He went to London and went to Oxford. And became an entrepreneur and a philanthropist. But one interesting thing is, for this song, Paul Simon and Garfunkel wanted to cut a record, but they needed $400. Well, Art went to his buddy, who he stayed with, who was blind, and says, "Can you loan me this money?" He and his wife talked about it. They were poor, $404 in his bank, and they gave 400. Gave it all to Art Garfunkel and Paul Simon to make this record. Long story short, well, you know the end of it.
And when I can smile for you, and I'm with you again. Because of it, let it smile. And the vision. What plan I still remain in the center of my bones.
And I had to get my thing just a second here rolling. Restless dreams I want.
There be a cobblestone. Need the head of what? There's my heart by the flash of the eye. That's such a time. It touches the sun. And in the naked night, sun. People may be home. People talking without speaking. People hearing that it's me. People writing stuff that was. That I do not know. Like a cat. Hear my word that I teach you. Take my heart that I teach you. But my so and put it in love. Those fire. And people that are pain. You got it. And the big one.
Those side. Thank you, Larry. You know, it's nothing to get up here and talk to everybody, but to get up and sing is really special. Oh, get it back. I mean, Chetty does a good job of advancing slides, but I think I'll take it over here. All right, Harrison is serving our country, doing great things for agriculture in the state of Mississippi. We'll say a prayer for Mississippi. Just kidding. Sloan was supposed to stand in and take over, and he's sick with flu B and strep, I think he said this morning. So he was not allowed to come. And I'm rambling on until I remember who is now delegated to do Sergeant at Arms. Is Jimmy? Jimmy, there you are.
I'm a star, and again, you don't know what I'm talking about, and they can explain it to you later, but I am not. My pay grade is not high enough to receive the agricultural news. Okay, we've got members of guests. Bob Estes had one.
Fellow Rotarians, I'm pleased to share Rotary today with my friend Tim Shepard. I have known Tim since he was about 8 years old. He and my son Matthew played on a traveling basketball team called the Knights. He's very good. Tim is a native of Westville. He earned a degree at JBU, but he also played basketball in operations management. And his degree is a Master of Science from ULA in operations management. Tim is running for county judge. Tim?
Appreciate you guys having.
Oh, one other thing, Tim has spent 8 years with the Wheeler Fire Department. So been with the Westport Police Department, and he's now a Fayetteville PD.
Christine Cook has two guests.
Fellow Rotarians, please help me welcome my good friend Joe Pope, who in Little Rock was Director of Operations HR in the American Heart Hospital and helped start the St. Francis Hospital, and then relocated here several years ago, worked at the Prestige HR and retired from there. Then my friend Marion Hauser, who was in education all her life, grew up in Fayetteville, raised in Fayetteville, traveled all over the world, education, ended up at Fayetteville Public Schools, where she retired from 3 years back.
Gary Barrow has a guest. And McNeil has a guest.
I am so proud to have with me Jennifer Irwin, the president and CEO of Chamber Fayetteville.
I'm pleased to have two guests. I have Gail and Paul Eads. Gail is a former member of this club, but the one thing I need you to know about both of these people is they're so dedicated to Rotary through our softball tournament. We used to have a girls softball tournament. That was our fundraiser. Did that over 20 years. And Gail recruited Bob, and they handled our Lake of Fayetteville operation, everything that went on there for right at 20 years. And I just am so pleased to have him as our guest. Would you now bow your heads and pray in your petition as I pray in mine? Dear Lord, as we come together in this Rotary meeting, we recognize the importance of setting the right tone. We seek your guidance in creating an atmosphere of respect, collaboration, and service. Let this prayer remind us of our commitment to making a difference in the lives of others.
I do have one about Joe.
Oh, good.
Say it into the mic.
Why did the calendar like Valentine's Day? Because he had a lot of dates.
Thank you. Harrison will be proud. All right, here's an introduction for you. Proposed member Emily Holmes. She's proposed for membership as an R35 member. She's associate attorney. That's what we need, more attorneys named Emily. Are you here? No. Is she part of the night? Yes. No, she's not here. Will she be part of our noon club or night club? Hopefully both. Because it's the same one. All right. A reminder that Butt Cups for February is the Ronald McDonald House. And I went to my first nightclub this week and it was a good time. Dana was there and there's a good group. And here's some pictures. We got a behind the scenes owner-led tour of Fossil Cove Brewery. And I don't think I quite had the grasp about how big of an operation this is, but this is a big deal. And it was fun to be there and hear about how this is done and his success and what makes their product special. So come to nightclub and learn and have a good time. And just as often as we're having fun, we're doing community service work. And that's the whole point. And that's what makes it great. Okay, pickleball's coming April 18th and 19th. I've added a note to this. This was in the newsletter. A sponsorship of $500 allows for use of Paul Harris Fellow points to allow a Paul Harris Fellow award. Kim Smith. There. What do we do?
Contact me and I'll do the paperwork
Okay.
or the computer work.
All right. It's that simple. It's just $500. Oh, and this was a point where I wanted to jump in and pardon me for putting my financial advisor hat on for a second, but if you're in the room and you have some stocks, maybe some stock that's grown a lot over the years, and you want to donate that in lieu of a cash gift, that is a good way to give to Rotary. And there's some financial advisors in the room that can help facilitate the transfer of that and get that to Rotary Club. It goes right into the foundation. It's a tax deduction for you. You save money on not having to pay a commission to sell it. It's a good way to consider giving to Rotary if you've got that old stock that you've had around for a long, long time. So I just wanted to mention that to you. And a second idea is if you have IRAs, and especially if you're over the age of 73 and you're required to take withdrawals out of your IRAs, some of you in the room already know this, and I apologize if it's redundant, but you can give to nonprofit organizations directly from your IRA. Contact your financial advisor, contact your bank, and have that money directed straight to the Rotary Club of Fayetteville Foundation. It'll satisfy your RMD. It's a gift of whatever the value. Maybe it's a low cost basis. It costs you nothing. It's not reportable as tax in any way. So triple win, quadruple win for the benefit of Rotary and our causes.
All right.
All right. Well, I guess I should have had this slide up while I was giving that spiel. You can set up a minimum of $10 a month via online, and that'll put you in the drawing to have $1,000 given in your name to your charity of choice. How cool is that? We're going to start that very soon. And speaking of very important causes, we've got these guys that were icons in this club, icons in this community. And their work spreads far beyond the club in Fayetteville and the university. These men impacted people across the globe. We want to honor them by giving scholarships $2,000 to student applicants that are attending the University of Arkansas, Northwest Arkansas Community College, or NTI. So the application link is in your newsletter. Laura, please introduce our guest speaker.
A really long introduction, and then my husband got a hold of it this morning. He's a big fan. He couldn't be here today. But I'm so excited to present our speaker today, Kelsey Musick. She's the 10th head coach of the University of Arkansas women's basketball program. She comes to Arkansas after 3 years at Oral Roberts University, where she led the Golden Eagles there. in postseason appearances in each of the last 2 seasons, while increasing the team's win total every year. Prior to Oral Roberts, she was 13 years as head coach at the NCAA Division II Southwest Oklahoma State. She amassed 259 to 125 record and was coach of the year 5 times while leading the Lady Bulldogs. Her career began at Fresno State in California with 1 season as director of basketball operations. Then she came back to Oklahoma and led her alma mater high school team, and she coached there after 2 seasons. She went back to Fresno State and then finally came back to Oklahoma. And we're so glad she's finally in Arkansas now. She played at Cameron University, where she set school records for her 3-point shooting percentages and assists. And as a senior, she helped lead the Aggies to a school record 25 wins. She and her husband have 3 children, and they live in Farmington. And we're so glad she's here today. Please help me welcome Kelsey.
You all. I appreciate you guys allowing me to be here. In the singing, I didn't sing. I always tell people I can only sing in 2 places, and that's a praise and worship at church or in my car by myself. No one else wants to hear that. So great job. No one wants to listen to me sing. So just I want to give you a little rundown of where I came from and how I've been able to rebuild programs. That's obviously the place in which we're at right now at the U of A with our women's basketball team and kind of our philosophies and how we're able to do things. So I'm originally from a tiny town in Western Oklahoma. There's about 500 people in my hometown. There's probably more cattle than there are humans, I like to say. So my dad is a farmer. Both my grandfathers were farmers. So just kind of that has always been instilled in me, and having a blue collar work ethic. And if you really want something bad enough, you got to really work for it in life. And I think my parents have always instilled that in me. And my grandma's still living. She's 97. And so, when I get to go home, I get to play cards with my grandma, and that's really a highlight of going home. She's really special. And my parents have been over to a lot of games. My dad is currently battling liver cancer. So that makes it a little bit more difficult for his times to be over here. But anytime he can, he's not going to miss a game of my children or mine if he gets a choice. Tonight, he's currently going to my niece's game. They're in the playoffs over in Oklahoma. I have my sister. She is 3 years younger than me, but she played basketball at Louisiana Tech her first year and transferred back to Oklahoma City University, where she finished her playing career. I have a younger brother, and he resides back in Oklahoma in our hometown. He works at the local bank, and we don't have a grocery store anymore, but we saw the bank, and so make sense, right? But him and his wife have 2 children, and he obviously helps my dad with the farm right now because my dad isn't able to do what he is used to do, because that's being on the farm is an all the time deal. You don't get a day off, so kind of understand that in coaching. We don't get days off either. So, like I said, I grew up in Western Oklahoma. Quite frankly, I thought I was going to be a school teacher. That's what I wanted to do. My mom's a teacher. My mom was a coach. I thought, man, I want to be able to teach and impact young people. And I played my last basketball game when I was in college, and I didn't want to take off my jersey. So at that moment, I knew I wasn't done, and I was able to luckily go into coaching. And someone asked me not too long ago, well, what if you weren't coaching? What would you do? There's nothing else I'd rather do. It's not just a job for me. It's a life. And to be able to impact young players, I always say mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally is a higher calling than anything else. That's what's most important. When I was at Cameron, I first got there and we had 12 freshmen on our team. We won 5 games. By the time I graduated, we won 25 games and made our first time into the national tournament. So I feel like I've been a part of a rebuild since I got to college. When I got to SWASU, I knew I wanted to be a head coach. I coached in California. I've been a high school coach, so I think the one thing that those moments taught me is, I coached 5th through 12th grade. I know what it's like to to do the laundry, to sweep the floor, to do all those things. And I always feel like no job is too small or too big or too little. I always say if you're too big to serve, then you're too small to lead. And I think that's important, and trying to instill in our players that if you're too big to, if you're too big to lead, then you're too small, or if you're too big to serve, then you're too small to lead. And I think when you put that perspective, that's important, because as a coach, I don't want to just, obviously I want to win. And in the situation we're in right now, we haven't won any SEC games. It sucks. I don't even know a nicer way to say it. It sucks. I lose sleep at night. I wake up at 2 a.m. and I think about all the different things that we could be doing. And I'll talk about that and the battles we're facing with rev share and NIL in a little bit, but it's also bigger than that basketball. We read something yesterday actually to our team, and you don't get to pick how long you're in adversity. You don't get to choose some of those things. You don't get to pick the hard things that you go through in life. But I try to tell them the hard things that we're going through right now that might deal with wins and losses, it's going to help us. It might help them 10 to 15 years from now, when you get a phone call that changes your entire life, when you get a diagnosis, when you feel like there's no silver lining or there's nothing on the other side. I try to teach them pushing through hard. That's why most people that succeed in life, they push through the hard, and what's on the other side of hard is usually something really good, but it's who can push through the hard days, the dark days, the rough days to get to the other side. Because that's where it lies, is on the other side of hard. It's not easy. So, I go back to my college career, and, like I said, I'll never forget my freshman year. We're playing the #1 team in the league. They get to our place. I'm in Cameron. We have dark gym in Cameron. Like they finally redid the court, but it was like the darkest gym probably in the whole state. And we were playing they're the #1 team in the league. They have a girl probably going to the WNBA from D2, which is big time. They didn't even warm up. Freshman, I'm like 18 years old. I was like, it's disrespectful. They didn't even warm up against us. You know what? We beat them that night. So they, those little things of facing adversity, and I got to SWASU. I won 3 games my first season, the whole year, not just 3 games. And I'm in my 20s. I was like, what did I sign up for? They're going to run me out of here so fast. My 3rd season, I signed a set of twins from Beaver, Oklahoma. Beaver's in the Panhandle. They do cow tipping and stuff out there. They panhandle. And so these freshmen, I remember we got them there. I hired my assistant. She played for me at Fresno State. She'd never coached a day in her life, but I knew the biggest thing I wanted was someone that would be loyal and that I could trust, that had the same values as me. I can teach her how to do a job. And she signed up. She came from Arlington. First time she got to Weatherford. We're in Weatherford, Oklahoma. It's right on I-40, but it's a tiny town. I said, let's go to the movies. Well, she missed the exit. Well, if you miss the exit, you got to drive about 10 miles to get to the other one. And there are street lights out there. She turned around and went, oh, she ain't coming to movies with you. But it's going to be okay. Like, you're not in Arlington, but you'll make it in Western Oklahoma. And she stuck with me the whole time I was at SWASU. But I remember those twins, I made Coach Anderson stay after practice every day and shoot layups. She said, why am I having to practice layups? They were in college. And I said, well, they can't make them, so we got to make them better, right? So those 2 set of twins, though, they stuck with me for 4 years, my first set of recruits. And we won 3 games my first year. My 3rd season, we won 3 games in a weekend and won our first conference championship. And so that was a rebuild. And we're able to get really good, by the time I left, we won 5 we were conference champs 5 years in a row, back to back to back to back. Actually coached your granddaughter back there. But just in, changing the culture and the way we did things, and people wanted to play for us at SWASU. And in 2019, we made it we played at the national championship game. I remember we walked in there and they still discounted us. We'd won 35 games in a row. We lost our very first game of the season. We won 35 games in a row. And we're playing a team from out on the eastern side of the United States. And they had a 6'5" post player. There was a D1 transfer, and I had a 5'9" post player. And we wore them out that night. But we had a system and a belief. I run the dribble. I've always ran the dribble drive. And so it's different. It's a high octane offense. People probably don't think we can play a lick of defense, but we can score some points. You know, one of our best games, we set a record in the Great American Conference versus Henderson State. It was 115 to 108. Finally, in the last time out, I said, well, we can't guard him. We better outscore him. So we did. We won the game. So that was a conference game, but we played in that national championship game. And that's kind of what kind of led me to the D1 route. I loved it in Weatherford. I love being close to my family. But I wanted that next challenge, and I feel like God works in mysterious ways. I firmly believe that. And so my kids were born in Weatherford. So I have two stepchildren, and then I have two boys, Maddox and Titus. When we lived in Weatherford, my stepson passed away when he was 18. So we went through that as a family, which is, hardest side this side of heaven that you'll ever go through. My stepdaughter, she's currently a freshman at Central Missouri. And then we brought both of our boys home. Maddox is a sixth grader. He's a hooper. He got to watch Kim over here, got to watch him play it was a week or two ago. And my boys, they go to Farmington, and my third grader never had a haircut. So if you ever come to a women's basketball game and you see the long-haired boy with a bun, he's never had a haircut. Very confident. He says that's how he gets the ladies. I don't know. Great. So, but he won't cut his hair, and I guess it gives him a superpower. But they both love basketball. And they can break it down for you. Sometimes when they want to give their assessment, I'm like, don't say that out loud. You're going to hurt someone's feelings. So, okay. But they're very, very, very involved. They go to, like I said, Farmington. That's where I met my husband. We was in Weatherford. So special place, able to turn things around there. And then, ultimately, it's kind of a crazy story. I'm going to share it with you guys. I don't always share all these things, but I'm just feeling in this moment. I actually had an agent call me, and that's kind of how it led me to the Division I route. I had a phone call, and he said, I don't normally do this. He said, I've already got my career set. I'm doing well. I represent all these men's coaches at high level, high profile. He said, but I watched your team play. I was sitting at a hotel and I watched your team play in that national championship game. And I think there's something different. I was like, man, I love it here. Okay, man. I talked to my husband. I was like, all right, we'll see what happens. And I believe it was by the grace of God. He's actually from Tulsa, Oklahoma. And I ended up signing on, and nothing really happened for a couple of years, to be honest, until you got to work your way up. It's not always just given to you. And so I would definitely say that that's how my career's been. I'm not scared of hard work. I'm not scared to, when I was at SWASU, I drove the bus. I got here and I got to fly on a private plane. I said, oh, wow, this is cool. From Western Oklahoma, I was driving the bus. We're driving to Amarillo. We're in a people mover. And luckily I'm from the country. I'm like climbing up there trying to tarp it down myself. I was like, I don't have time to phone a friend. I had to figure it out. So just that's kind of the way we took it. But again, I signed on with this agent, and that's kind of how I ended up at ORU. It was the right, and it was at the right time. It was shortly after we'd lost our oldest son, and it was time for a move and for something different and a new challenge. And I always said I wanted to see if I could run my high octane offense, and I've adapted the dribble drive. So, if you research the dribble drive, Vance Wahlberg, who's at Fresno State, created the dribble drive. That's where we learned it from his best friend. Brian Tesler was at Fresno City. I got a bunch of Fresno City kids when I first got to SWASU because we ran a similar system. And and I wanted to see if I could, and I've tweaked it, it's probably Coach Music's dribble drive at this point, because I've totally tweaked it and made it my own. And, sometimes I'll be driving down the road and my kids are like, what? And I was like, I've got a great idea. I think this action will work. And they're like, where did you come up with this stuff? Like, just let me drive for a minute. Let me sit there. We'll be in practice, and I'll be like, give me the board real quick. I've got a great idea. And they're like, all right, here's a Coach Music pivot. We'll let her pivot all day. But I feel like that's one of the things God has blessed me with, is a visual mind. I like to say my granddad was like that with the Bible. So it's pretty cool. But anyways, got to ORU, and first year there, we were not very good. And so again, year 2 and 3 in a rebuild, we won the last 2 years, we won 20 games. And most people are like, man, how did you make a jump from mid-major like ORU, and now you're in the SEC? Like, this is crazy. And I remember it was like the last week, We made it to the national, we made it to the WBITs, we made postseason play. And, you know, my agent had kind of talked to Hunter, and Hunter doesn't really work with agents, to be quite honest. He likes to do his own thing, which I respect. And man, I had my first conversation with Hunter, and that was like on a Friday, and by a Monday, I'm going to this luncheon. Or it's a breakfast, actually. It's bracketology. They have it at ORU, and we just let our men's coach go, which usually, obviously, it's for the men's program. So they asked me to be on the panel. And I'm thinking, okay, well, quite frankly, I don't have time to watch men's basketball. I'm preparing for a game on Friday. So I get up there and I'm sitting with Coach Zim and Scotty Thurman. I said, what is going on? I look down at my table and they got a Razorback on their shirt. I said, if this is a sign from God, man, he's talking loud. I said, but if he was, I said, Lord, if that's the door I'm supposed to walk through, open it and let it be. If not, I'm happy where I'm at. I am. And I said, but God, if I could ask one thing, like I got a game on Friday. If it cannot happen until I got a game on Thursday. I was like, if I could at least, if it's meant to be, like, I don't want to tell my team. It didn't go through until Friday. Coach my game on Thursday. So that's Jesus right there. So, and here we are, you know, uproot my family, going back and forth. And that's kind of just a quick rundown of me getting here. And you know, what a jump. I like to find I think it's a blessing. Is it hard? Yeah, it is hard. But you know, the one thing is I think I've assembled a really good staff, and I'm going to introduce Coach Shy here in a minute, but we have a really good staff and what we have in place. I think the hardest part that we're dealing with is obviously the rev share and the NIL and the money portion. Before I talk about that to end, our philosophy is we have pillars. And I think in this first year, our goal is to really do a good job of establishing those pillars, which is faith, family, and fearless. Like I told you before, trying to prepare these young women for their future and what comes next is more important than anything else. If we don't help prepare them for the world and the real world and be brutally honest with them, then I'm failing. I'm failing miserably, in my opinion. And so those are our pillars. And so to try to change our culture, the style of play that we're playing, their energy and their effort. If you haven't been to a game, I would love for you to come and give us a chance. I will promise you my kids will play hard. The landscape is different. We live in a world of rev share and NIL, and it's a money-driven world. And, you know, I'm about to play Texas tonight, and they got a $2 million team if we want to talk business. I don't have a $2 million team. But I promise you what I do have is the kids with a bunch of heart, and they're going to play hard, and it takes time. I tell them all the time, if you'll trust the process. No one builds their dream home. If any of you have built a home, you didn't build it in 3 months. Probably didn't build it in 6 months. It takes time. You know, for those of you that have been married 50 plus years, it took time. It took time to build a solid relationship, a relationship that will withstand the test of time. But that's how anything in life worth having, it takes time. And, you know, and that's the great thing. I feel like our administration is behind us, and if we get the right pieces, we're going to have to raise some money to help fill in the gaps, which is something we're trying to do. And Joe's been a huge portion of that and really helping us. But to be brutally honest, that's where we're at in order to take that next jump and to go from the bottom to where we can make the tournament. Money does come into play, and that's just me being brutally honest. So if anyone wants to make a donation, we'll take it. But more importantly, give us a chance. I'd love for you to come and give our ladies a chance. It is a different style of play, but good high character kids. And I think that those kinds of things matter, because we tell them all the time, you know, people can take a lot of things away from you in life, but they can't take your character. They can't take your integrity. They can't take your work ethic unless you let them. And those kinds of things we're trying to instill in our young ladies, not just for the moment, but for their future. And I hope 10, 15 years from now, like Morgan Smith still comes to my games when I see her, you know, if she's around. I want those players to come back. You know, one of my players, you know, just had a baby the other day, and I love getting pictures. Those things matter more than anything, because you had a small impact, and that's what it's all about. And so I'm going to end with some questions. But before I do, some of you know Coach Shiree. She's been here forever. She is a legend. So Coach Shy played at the U of A. She is in the Hall of Fame. She played here. She has coached here through tons of coaches. I hope I'm doing a decent job in her opinion, because her opinion matters to me. When I got here, they're like, you got to keep Coach Shine. I was like, I am full court pressing her. All right. Like for 48 straight hours, I put the full court press on Coach Shy. I was able to keep her by the grace of God, and she is a blessing to us, but she's a local legend. So luckily she came with me today, but again, she stayed on staff and she's helped the transition be seamless and a whole lot easier. But I wouldn't be where I'm at without great people around me like herself. And that's an imperative to our program and what we're trying to do. I know I spoke a lot and I kind of gave you a rundown. But like I said, we only have a few more SEC games left. The portal's going to open April 6th, and that changes everything. But unfortunately, as much as, I'm old school, I'm still pen and paper, I like, it is the world we live in. And I can't change the fact that it's progressing and it's moving in that direction. So I can't fight it. All I can do is find ways to combat it and continue to grow this team and get better. And our goal is to make the tournament. And I don't want to just do it once. I want to do it all the time. I tell them all the time. One of the things I tell my team is, I'm like, you want your boyfriend to love you sometimes? Well, you can't show up and play for me sometimes. So sometimes doesn't count. Like if we're going to pay your rent, you don't want to pay sometimes. Sometimes doesn't work in life. You want people that are all in and all the time and just trying to teach them those life lessons, no matter how hard it is. That's kind of who we are and what we're trying to do. And I wanted to share that with you and invite you to a game. We only have a couple of home games left, unfortunately, but there is a next season and we will continue to get better. I promise you that. But in close, I would love for you guys to ask me some questions. I know I probably went over. I have shoot around in a minute, but I will stay here as long as I can.
Those, tell us how, NIL.
I think the biggest thing is, you think you can get a player and they fit your system. Like for instance, when we first got here, we'd lose a kid and maybe we could offer them, let's say, I'm just going to throw out, these are random numbers. So let's say I could offer them 50,000. They would go to school B down the road for 100,000, even if their production, maybe they only average 1.7 points a game. Crazy, huh? But that's ultimately the battle I'm fighting. So there's a rev share cap, but then you can go over that with NIL, and that's what we're trying to raise right now. Ultimately, my goal is about 400,000 that I'm going to try to potentially raise, if at all possible, to help us combat that. For instance, tonight, when I say Texas probably has a $2 million team, it's probably a little over 2 million in the women's basketball scheme of things. That's what we're battling.
Let's take one more question. Dana?
The future. It's not really a question, but do you agree?
I do. I promise we'll get there. I always say I'm going to try and if nothing else, but I think my team is definitely, they're buying in, they play really hard and they're starting to adjust. I think you can, there's those bright spots where you see the moment where the offense is starting to click for them. And we don't run plays, we run the dribble drive where it's a lot of read and react. So it does take time and just helping them remember to stay the course. But again, I definitely do see a difference. And that's one thing that's been promising. I think even in the midst of losing games in the SEC, our fans keep showing up and more people keep coming because they are seeing a difference. And the wins will come. But you got to start somewhere. But I firmly believe the wins will come. Our system will work and our buy-in of making players better each and every year. Because we don't take player development lightly. I don't think it's fair for a kid to come here and me to be like, oh, that's as good as you're at. That's my job to make you better. It's my job to make you better in all aspects of life. And I don't, like I said, I don't take that lightly, but I definitely think that if you, like you said, for someone that comes and watches, you can see a difference and it's just going to get better. I believe that with all my heart.
Interesting.
So cool.
What she said, that's so cool. And what's really cool is when have we had a head coach of one of our teams in the middle of their season come and speak to our club? That's really special. So as a token of our gratitude for your time here today and for sharing with us, this is a rampaging Razorback on a rotary wheel, a hog and a cog. I hope you'll display it proudly on your desk in the office. Thank you so much. All right, now, y'all, we've lost some significant icons in our community. We've got a funeral this afternoon. Hank Broyles' funeral is at 2:00. If you're going, I'll see you there. We also lost an icon from the School of Business over the weekend. John Norwood passed away. Yeah. And I was close to him right up until he moved away to New Orleans, where his family could be near him. So I'll share with you anything I know about arrangements or a memoriam for John Norwood as that information comes along. So sorry for the sad news to end the meeting. Take care. Bless you all. Thank you.
Sometimes. Like.